What do you think of Logan's incredible story? Do you believe that quiet strength can change everything? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from, whether you're in the US or somewhere else in the world. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, so you don't miss our next special story coming tomorrow. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Turn on the notifications and join us as we explore more incredible journeys together. See you in the next video. The Silent Rebellion. How one student took down a school bully without lifting a finger. In the small, tight-knit town of Millbrook, everything followed a predictable rhythm. Everyone knew each other's business, and anything, or anyone, new was bound to stand out. The moment Logan Carter stepped into Millbrook High, he became the subject of whispered conversations. Logan didn't crave attention. In fact, he did his best to avoid it. With his tall, lean frame, he kept his head down and slid into the back row of every class. His dark jeans, hoodies, and worn sneakers contrasted with the polished image of the other students. His aloofness only seemed to attract more curiosity, but Logan didn't care. He didn't come to Millbrook for fame or recognition. He came to finish school and keep to himself. Logan's newness didn't go unnoticed by everyone, especially Brandon Cole, the school's star athlete and self-proclaimed king of Millbrook High. Brandon had a reputation to maintain, surrounded by his group of friends, Kyle, Mason, and Derek. They thrived on power, and any new kid was seen as a challenge, a target. Logan became their next victim. They started with small taunts and pushy remarks. At lunch, Logan, who always sat alone, was approached by Brandon, who slapped his hand on the table with exaggerated force. "Hey, new guy," Brandon's voice rang out loud enough for the whole cafeteria to hear. "You even planning to do anything here, or just going to sit around like a ghost?" Logan didn't react. He simply picked at his food, barely acknowledging Brandon's presence. His indifference only seemed to anger Brandon more, but Logan remained unfazed, calm as ever. This only fueled the animosity from Brandon and his group. But what Brandon didn't know was that Logan wasn't someone who would back down easily. He wasn't scared by the taunts, nor was he bothered by the attention he received. And the more he ignored them, the more Brandon pushed, certain that sooner or later, Logan would snap. Little did he know, Logan had a story of his own, one that would eventually show everyone that the quietest storms are often the most powerful. The teasing and bullying, relentless as they were just the beginning. Logan's calm demeanor, the way he carried himself with quiet strength, would soon be tested. And when that time came, Millbrook High would never be the same again. Logan wasn't just a new kid, he was someone who had learned to fight his own battles, in his own way. The days that followed were a continuous game of provocation. Brandon and his friends made it their mission to break Logan, to see him snap. They started bumping into him in the hallways, shoving his books off his desk, whispering insults when no one was around. They thought it was just a matter of time before Logan would retaliate or show fear. But each time, Logan just carried on as if nothing happened. His calm demeanor never cracked, no matter how much they pushed. This only made Brandon more obsessed with making Logan react. The more Logan ignored him, the harder Brandon tried. One afternoon, Logan left school alone, as usual, walking through the quieter streets. he was no stranger to walking home in solitude. But today, something was different. Footsteps echoed behind him. Logan didn't need to look to know it was Brandon and his crew. They were finally going to get a reaction out of him. Thought you could sneak off without saying goodbye? Brandon's voice cut through the evening air, dripping with malice. They circled him, blocking his path, their eyes burning with anticipation. Logan sighed, a trace of weariness in his voice. "I don't want trouble," he said, his words calm but firm. But Brandon wasn't having it. "Too bad," Mason sneered, lunging at Logan. The move was fast, but Logan was faster. In one swift motion, he twisted Mason's wrist, sending him crashing to the ground with a painful thud. The other guys froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Logan wasn't just another kid they could bully. He was different. Brandon's jaw dropped. "What the hell was that?" he growled, his voice a mixture of rage and confusion. Logan met his gaze, his calm eyes now sharp, his patience wearing thin. "I told you," Logan said, his voice quiet but dangerous, "I don't want trouble, but if you keep pushing." He didn't need to finish the sentence. The warning was clear. The next day, the school was abuzz with whispers about Mason's injured wrist. Logan's reputation was beginning to shift, but Brandon wasn't done yet. He wanted payback. The tension in the school was palpable, and soon, it became clear that a showdown was inevitable. The final bell rang, and rumors spread that everyone would be gathering behind the gym after hours. Logan had no intention of backing down. But he wasn't looking for a fight. He just wanted to finish it once and for all. The stage was set for a battle that would change everything. The atmosphere behind the gym was tense as the students gathered in a wide circle, eager to see what would unfold. Brandon stood at the center, flanked by his cronies, his chest puffed up with arrogance. His pride had been wounded, and now, he was determined to break Logan once and for all. Logan, however, was unfazed. He had walked into the circle with his usual calm, the crowd parting as he stepped through. His eyes scanned the crowd, then met Brandon's, as though this whole spectacle didn't concern him. "Figured you'd show up," Brandon sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Logan didn't respond, his face impassive. "I'm not here to fight," he said simply, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying enough weight to cut through the tension. Brandon let out a short laugh. "Too bad," he taunted, stepping forward. Without warning, Mason lunged at Logan, fists swinging. Logan sidestepped with precision, his body moving fluidly, like a well-rehearsed dance. He twisted Mason's arm and, with a swift motion, sent him crashing to the ground. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Mason groaned, clutching his arm, clearly out of the fight. Brandon's crew stood frozen for a moment, stunned by how quickly Logan had neutralized their friend. But they quickly recovered, charging at him one by one, each attempt to overpower him met with the same calm, controlled response. Logan didn't need to be flashy. His movements were efficient, calculated. He wasn't fighting out of anger, he was fighting because he had to. One by one, the boys fell. Kyle went down first, followed by Derek, each of them sprawled out on the ground, groaning in defeat. As the last of Brandon's crew hit the dirt, the crowd was in complete silence, the weight of the moment sinking in. Only Brandon was left standing, his eyes burning with fury. Logan walked toward him, each step deliberate, and stopped just inches away from the broken leader. "This is over," Logan said softly, his voice steady. Brandon, fueled by humiliation and rage, threw a wild punch. Logan caught it midair with ease, his grip firm but controlled. "Walk away, Brandon," Logan said, his voice calm but firm. Brandon staggered back, the realization sinking in that he couldn't win. His ego was shattered. Without a word, he turned and walked away, his crew trailing behind him. The crowd erupted in cheers, the fear that had once gripped Millbrook High dissolving in an instant. Logan had proven that silence, strength, and control were the most powerful weapons of all. He had walked into this fight as a target and walked out as a legend, leaving behind a legacy that would change the school forever. The following day, whispers filled the halls of Millbrook High. The students couldn't stop talking about what they'd witnessed behind the gym. Brandon's humiliation had spread faster than wildfire, and Logan, the quiet new kid, was now a legend. The power shift was palpable, but Logan remained the same. He didn't bask in his victory or seek the attention that came with it. He simply slipped back into his usual routine, sitting in the back of the classroom, scribbling in his worn notebook, and keeping to himself. But not everyone had forgotten what happened. Brandon's bruised pride burned deeply, and he wasn't ready to accept defeat. He had been knocked down in front of his entire crew, his status as the undisputed king of the school was shattered. But that wasn't the worst part. Logan hadn't even fought back. He had humiliated Brandon without ever throwing a single punch. That thought lingered in Brandon's mind, gnawing at him. He couldn't let this go. Not now, not ever. Logan, however, wasn't concerned. He moved through the school as if it were any other day, unaffected by the attention, or the hate, that had suddenly been thrown his way. He kept his eyes on the goal, graduating, moving on. But with each step, he felt the weight of the unspoken challenge hanging in the air. Brandon wouldn't let it rest. Logan knew that. And deep down, Logan was waiting for the next move. It came sooner than he expected. One afternoon, as Logan was walking home, he noticed the familiar sound of footsteps behind him. His instinct kicked in, but he didn't flinch. Brandon and his crew had been following him for days, but today, it felt different. Logan could feel their eyes on his back, the tension hanging in the air. They were waiting for him to slip up, to make a mistake. But Logan wasn't that easy. "You thought you could walk away from yesterday?" Brandon called out, his voice full of malice. Logan didn't turn around. He didn't have to. He already knew what was coming. The group of bullies closed in, circling him like sharks. It wasn't just physical anymore, it was personal. But Logan wasn't intimidated. "I told you before, I don't want trouble," he said, his voice quiet but steady. Brandon's jaw clenched. "Too bad," he sneered, stepping closer. He shoved Logan in the chest. Logan staggered slightly but didn't fall. His face remained calm, unreadable, like it always had. The boys around him waited, unsure of what to do next. Then, in an instant, Logan acted. He moved swiftly, effortlessly, a calm fury in his eyes. He twisted Mason's wrist, sending him crashing to the ground in a fluid motion. The rest of the group froze. Brandon's shock was evident, but it didn't last long. His rage built up faster than his sense of logic, and with a scream of anger, he lunged at Logan. This time, Logan was ready. As Brandon's punch came, Logan caught it midair, locking eyes with him. "Walk away," Logan said quietly, his voice soft yet commanding. Brandon's breath caught, his mind racing. But with his ego completely destroyed, he had no choice but to retreat. He stepped back, his chest heaving, realizing that the battle was over before it had even started. Logan had won, not with violence, but with control. As Brandon and his crew slunk away, Logan stood still, his eyes focused ahead. The crowd had witnessed it all. The tension that had once ruled the halls of Millbrook High was gone. The fear, the dominance, the bullies, gone. Logan had become more than just a new kid. He had changed the entire school. And as he walked away, leaving the chaos behind him, he knew that sometimes silence spoke louder than any words ever could. The days following the showdown behind the gym felt like a shift in the very air at Millbrook High. Logan wasn't just a new kid anymore. He had become a symbol of quiet strength, the one who had stood up to the tyrant, and won, without ever throwing a punch. The tension that had once crackled in the halls now began to fade. The whispers about Logan, the way he had handled the bullies, spread throughout the school like wildfire. For the first time in years, the power structure at Millbrook High had been shaken. Brandon, on the other hand, wasn't taking it so well. His bruised ego was a constant reminder of the humiliation he'd suffered. Everywhere he went, he could feel the eyes on him. Students who once feared him now whispered behind his back, and his crew, who had always followed his lead, began to question him. He couldn't understand it. How had Logan, of all people, managed to break his reign without even fighting back? It ate away at him, and the anger only grew. Logan, meanwhile, returned to his quiet routine. He didn't seek out attention, didn't care for the sudden respect that seemed to follow him now. He simply wanted to finish school, get through the year, and leave this town behind. But the feeling of being constantly watched, of being a target again, was still there. Logan knew it wouldn't end with just one showdown. Brandon's pride had been crushed, and a broken pride was dangerous. He was going to want revenge. Logan was ready for it. It came on a cold afternoon when Logan was walking home from school alone, as usual. The streets of Millbrook were quieter than usual, the autumn chill hanging in the air. He had just rounded the corner of Maple Street when he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind him. It wasn't the casual step of someone walking to pass him. These steps were deliberate, closing the distance with every moment. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Logan kept walking, his heart rate steady, but his senses sharp. The footsteps came closer. A voice shouted, "Hey, Carter!" Logan didn't flinch. Brandon and his crew were behind him again. They had been following him for days, building up to this moment, and Logan could feel the tension. He didn't need to look at them to know they had something planned. The sound of shoes on concrete grew louder, but Logan kept walking. They were playing their hand now. Suddenly, one of Brandon's crew, Derek, lunged at him from the side. Logan sidestepped him, his movements sharp and fluid. Derek collided with the pavement. The others paused, stunned. Brandon stepped forward, his face twisted in rage. "This is it, Carter," he spat. "You're done." But Logan wasn't afraid. He faced Brandon head-on, his posture calm, his eyes unwavering. He knew what he had to do. "You've lost, Brandon," Logan said softly, his voice carrying. "And you'll keep losing." The words hit Brandon like a slap. He lunged, fueled by anger, but Logan was ready. The punch came at him in a blur, but Logan caught it mid-air, twisting Brandon's arm in a practiced motion. He heard a snap of fabric as he twisted it harder, forcing Brandon to drop his guard. "Go home," Logan said, his voice low but strong. "This is over." Brandon staggered back, his face pale, his breath coming in quick bursts. The crowd that had gathered around them went silent, watching as the once proud bully was reduced to nothing. Logan turned, walking away without a second glance, leaving Brandon standing there, humiliated, his ego shattered for good. The power in Millbrook High had officially shifted. What do you think about Logan's journey at Millbrook High? Was his approach to dealing with the bullies the right one? Would you have reacted the same way, or would you have taken a different path? We'd love to hear your thoughts on how Logan stood up to Brandon and his crew without ever throwing a punch, but still made his mark. Do you think standing up for yourself always requires physical confrontation, or can it be more about strength of character? How do you feel about the way Logan handled the situation and the aftermath? And what about Brandon? Do you think he'll change after everything that happened? Was his pride too much to handle, or is there a lesson for him to learn in all of this? Let us know where you're watching from too. It's always interesting to see how different places can inspire similar feelings about these kinds of stories. If Logan's story inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling stories like this one. We've got another exciting story coming tomorrow, and you won't want to miss it. Turn on your notifications so you can join us for the next chapter. See you in the comments.